Elon. Education. I mean, you have your own philosophy about education. With AI, education might change dramatically. Can you tell us briefly about your philosophy of education? And number two, do we need 12 years of schooling and 4 years of university?
Well, with respect to education, I think in general, some things that we could do to make it more compelling would be to explain to children why we are teaching a particular subject. The human mind has evolved to really forget anything that it deems unimportant. So, in fact, human memory is really quite bad relative to, say, the memory of your phone. Your phone can remember the entire contents of an encyclopedia down to the last letter and pixel. But human memory is terrible by comparison. So the mind is constantly trying to forget things, actually. So if you explain the why a subject is being taught, that will then establish relevance, and it's much more likely to result in motivation for kids. And then also, if you teach knowledge, especially in the sciences, as solutions to a problem, it's much more effective. So, like, let's say you're trying to understand an internal combustion engine. Well, it's actually better to sort of take that apart and then say, okay, well, what tools do we need to use to take it apart? We need a wrench and screwdriver and various other things to take it apart. Well, then you understand that the reason for the tools. And so, like for mathematics and are like tools in physics and engineering. But if you teach to the problem and then you understand, then you establish the relevance of the tools, then it's actually much easier to remember mathematics and physics because they help explain how the world works, as opposed to teaching them without explaining why and simply teaching them. It's like, instead of teaching to the problem, currently people teach the tool. It would be like having a course on screwdrivers or a course on wrenches, but not understanding why you have a course you're learning about screwdrivers and wrenches. I think this is really quite a fundamental principle that should be applied in education. And I think sometimes we do teach classes that children do not find useful, and where the answer to the why is actually not going to be a very good answer. Most people, I think, do not find advanced mathematics useful and are unlikely to find it useful in their life. Or the elements that they do find useful can be taught very quickly as general principles. I also think that critical thinking is something that should be taught to children at a relatively young age, as effectively like a mental firewall, to really think about when somebody tells you something, is it cogent? Is it true? Or what is the probability that it is true? And so that you can be taught to reject things that are untrue or more likely to be untrue, and favor things that are more likely to be true. Critical thinking, I think, is very helpful for people to learn.
So is it 12 years of schooling you are with, or without 12 years?
12 years is a long time, I suppose. But I mean, humans just do take a long time to mature. So there's emotional maturity, physical maturity, and mental maturity that is happening simultaneously with the education. And I suppose it could be done in 10 years. Perhaps it does not need 12. But then if someone mature at age 16, they're more likely to be mature at age 18. So I guess 12 years is probably not bad. We probably don't need an additional 4 or 5 or 6 years in college or university. That seems probably excessive. I think we'll probably shave a few years off and be fine.
Okay. Kids will love it, by the way.
Yeah.
But social media. But we spend so many hours on social media.